Hi, this is Craig James with Just Informed Talk, and I want to let you know that you can get the best price on gold and silver today, and I'm very proud to be working with the folks over at shop.allamericangold.com. You can go visit their website today or call them at 800-951-0592. But what they're going to do is they're going to give you the best prices on gold and silver available on the market today. They're offering the most competitive prices out there. And let me just tell you this, if you're not prepared for the financial collapse that's coming and the wars that continue to spiral out of control and the fiat currency eventually collapsing with the inflation going through the roof, you need to start now. Go get your gold and silver. Go to shop.allamericangold.com or call 800-951-0592 and let them know Craig sent you. But more importantly, get yourself protected and prepared for what's ahead.
The truth. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is Just Informed Talk Radio, where we are not ashamed of the gospel, because it is God's power for salvation to everyone who believes.
One thing, I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind, I designed this rhyme to explain in due time. All I know, time is a valuable thing. Watch it fly by as the pendulum swings. Watch it count down to the end of the day. The clock takes life away, it's so unreal. Didn't look out below, watch the time go right out the window. Trying to hold on, but you didn't even know. Wasted it all just to watch you go. I kept everything inside and even
Welcome to another Just Informed Talk radio show. I'm your host, Craig James. Today we have a big show for you. Of course, a lot happening over the last 24 hours that we're going to unpack and bring to the front. Right now, the stuff the fake news doesn't want you to hear or talk about, the stuff the big tech corporations are censoring, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be diving into here today. I hope you all are ready. And of course, I want to say thanks to everybody listening, whether you're listening live on 1360 KHNC here in the Front Range of Colorado, up in Wyoming or Nebraska, or you're listening online at 1360khnc.com or on any of the other platforms where this is live streamed. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff. It helps me out big, and I really appreciate when you do it. Also, thank you. Just really appreciate you all being here. Now, we got a lot to cover, and I'm going to tell you, I got a stack of news that we can get through here. There's a lot that we can get to here. Joe Biden has officially been impeached, or he's officially under an impeachment inquiry now, according to the latest vote in Congress. The House of Representatives has voted. Now, this is all coming after Hunter Biden defied the subpoena Congress issued him yesterday to pull a political stunt in front of Capitol Hill. Instead of showing up to face his subpoena and hearing his testimony, he decided to avoid that, to ignore it, and decided to give a press conference in front of the steps of Capitol Hill with Eric Swalwell by his side, which is an interesting choice considering these are two political whores of China getting together to give their, their story to the people. Is it a mea culpa? I don't know. But I'll say this. It is fascinating to me that Hunter Biden arrived in D.C. on Wednesday giving a press conference on Capitol Hill where he revealed he will only answer questions under his own rules despite a congressional subpoena. Congressional Republicans subpoenaed Hunter Biden for a closed-door deposition related to his influence peddling and family corruption. But Hunter said he will only testify at a public hearing, saying also, quote, "My father was not involved or was not financially involved in my business." Now, we got a lot more to get to, including, we've been talking a lot about predictive programming, and the trailer for a new movie about Civil War in America has just dropped, and it's a doozy. It's a doozy. We don't know all the details yet. It's just a trailer, but it looks like all of the big Hollywood studios have gotten together and created finally a Civil War, red versus blue, predictive programming, propaganda piece that is going to be coming out to theaters soon. So we're going to look at that. And, you know, with the whole Hunter Biden thing, I mean, I just bring this up to begin with because you have everybody lying about it already. The New York Times doctors the quote from Hunter Biden where, excuse me, the actual quote is, "Let me state as clearly as I can, my father was not financially involved in my business." Okay? But if you went and read the New York Times yesterday, the quote is listed as such. "Let me state as clearly as I can, my father was not involved in my business." So there's a slight difference there, right? Just a slight difference where he added the qualifying descriptive adjective of financially involved in his business. That's what Hunter did. He gave that qualifier. And for some reason, the New York Times decides to omit that. Now, this is the problem in our country right now, as I see it. We have not only a two-tier justice system, but we have nobody willing to hold the corrupt justice system and federal law enforcement officials to account in the media. These people are liars, and they're propagandists, and they're paid to be such. They're handpicked because of their political zealotry. They have no interest in getting to the truth. They only have an interest in presenting the truth that is their subjective view of what truth really may be in their minds. And I understand that this is the dynamic that they depend on, is us fighting with one another about which truth is accurate and real. And we used to have this thing called open debate and open dialogue and discourse in this country, but now that's been replaced by state-ran media, big tech censorship promoting the narrative. And the narrative is written by the individuals written by the criminals, essentially, amazingly. So I personally get frustrated, but at the end of the day, I understand that that's what this is all meant to do. It's meant to divide us. As I said, they're already putting out more propaganda about Civil War movies. So what's the big deal? Well, there's a Civil War movie that's coming out now, and it seems like they want Civil War, or they're at least predictively programming people for it. So the film is coming out in spring of 2024, and in this film, I'll give you a few takeaways from what we can tell based on the trailer and what's publicly available so far. In the film, 19 states appear to have seceded from the Union and are called the Western Forces, California and Texas, as well as the Florida Alliance. They appear to be in war against the U.S. government. In the movie, the Western Forces are supposedly heading toward the White House and are scheduled to be there on July 4th. The U.S. military appears to be activated and fighting against Americans in this movie to the point of dropping airstrikes on American citizens. There's reference made to a 3-term president in this film. There's also a map which appears to depict the factions represented by blue and red colors. There's also a sign on one of the there's also a team of journalists that are, I think, kind of the central figures in this film who make a quote within the trailer that says they shoot journalists on sight at the Capitol. This movie coming out, at least the trailer coming out, at the exact same time as Obama's film Leave the World Behind is not a coincidence. I'll play the trailer for you guys here, and maybe we'll play that when we come back because we're about to hit a break. But let me just say this, that you can bet your bottom dollar that they are sowing this chaos and discord, because what will happen is this. If they can't steal the election, if they can't throw Trump in jail, if it all backfires, maybe like it did in 2016, and something happens that they're not prepared for, I believe that they're willing to take it to the next level. They're willing to escalate this to a hot war internally, a civil war. And why do I say that? Because they're desperate and their lives depend on it. And desperate people do desperate things. So if you think it's impossible, again, I do this thought exercise with everybody listening out there. Take yourself back to 2019, and if you could teleport yourself in a time machine to then and see yourself in 2019 and tell yourself what was going to happen in 2020 with COVID and the stolen election and everything else, would you believe it? Or would you say it's crazy? The answer to that tells you a lot. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Welcome back, Welcome back, Just Informed Talk Radio. I'm your host, Craig James. We have a lot to cover here today, and I want to get through a lot of it, but the point I'm trying to make here is the reason I start with the Biden stuff is because I don't believe there's going to be resolution there. The resolution will be simple. They're trying to push Biden out of office. They're trying to basically tie up all the loose ends with Hunter Biden. That's why you see these investigations leading to criminal indictments with him, is because he's a loose end that they need to tie up. And Joe Biden, they don't want him. He is the smoking gun, right? It's not Hunter Biden. Everybody, it's kind of a misconception here. Hunter Biden was just the facilitator. Joe Biden was the orchestrator. Okay, I know that's hard to believe because of how senile and demented he is, but rest assured that he is behind this. And what he represents, more broadly speaking, is a faction of criminals who have not only infiltrated our government, but have subverted the rule of law in this country and have weaponized the DOJ by infiltration and subversion tactics. And they've weaponized the Federal Bureau of Investigation by subversion, infiltration, and coercion. They've weaponized blackmail. They've utilized blackmail, I should say, on high-ranking officials to compromise them. And that's why you can't hear plain truth. Like, I use this example a lot, but I think it really is telling, right? We all know 9/11 is not, at minimum, didn't happen the way they told us it did. That you still hear to this day them say, oh, well, 2 planes flew into towers in New York and then Building 7 just magically fell. To me, it's wildly unbelievable. But beyond that, the craziest thing is that you can't get a straight answer from anybody on Capitol Hill about it. Because unfortunately, when you go to Congress, you enter the swamp, and the swamp is ran by criminals. Very, very, very serious criminals. I'm not talking about your average, shoplifter at Target, some mentally ill guy throwing a sack full of makeup over his back and running out the front door. No, we're talking about high-level, sociopathic, monsters, right? Who can order murders and kill people and blackmail people without even blinking. And I know that's terrifying, right? It's horrifying. It's unbelievable, especially for people like us, good-hearted, good-natured people who look around and want to do well unto others, who really just want to live our lives peacefully and help others become better, want to live godly lives and build our treasure in heaven. We don't want ill will or evil to be visited upon others. We trust that God is the judge. We have faith in that. But these people don't. These people have in their hearts, if they are engaging in this kind of evil, they've rejected God already. And they live without fear of consequences for their actions. And the only thing they fear is death, which is the unknown, because they haven't made themselves known to God in a way that would allow them to have that eternal salvation, that peace, and that solace in their heart. Because obviously your actions speak volumes louder than your words. And a lot of these people are forked-tongued liars. So the point I'm trying to make, though, is simple. With regard to the Bidens, I'm not seeing resolution there. Yeah, we're going to get some impeachment inquiry that's going to go nowhere. Lindsey Graham's already said it's dead on arrival. The Senate, just yesterday, passed the resolution as a part of the NDAA that has now not only reauthorized the Section 702 of the FISA court, but it's expanded its scope so that now essentially we're going to be living in a more lawless surveillance state. They have warrantless backdoor surveillance to where now they can coerce broadband internet tech companies to give your personal and private data without a warrant simply because you hired them to come install software at your house. We talked about this in yesterday's show. Now, if you want to chime in, let me know your thoughts, opinions. 877-536-1360 is the number. I'd love to hear you. Drop your knowledge on us or share your thoughts. 877-536-1360. But when I say there's going to be a civil war, obviously I'm not calling for one. What is it that Alex Jones put? But if you want to fight, you better believe you got one. So I'm not calling for anything. As a matter of fact, I would say that with every fiber of my being, I would not want this. Can you imagine? Our world would be changed drastically. And it wouldn't be for the better, at least not in the meantime. It would take a long time to recover from such a catastrophic event. But at some point, they're going to push the American people too far. The lies, the corruption, the criminality, extortion, blackmail, the greed, all of this stuff, it's got to come to a point somewhere. There has to come to a head. I don't know what that's going to look like. All I can do is prepare myself and my family and make sure I'm living right with God so that whatever happens, I can turn to Him and get His guidance through it. But I'll tell you this, that they're playing with fire, and they know it, again, because they're desperate, because their lives truly do depend on it. You know, there's a point that criminals tend to cross, right? You can look at this. This is like criminal psychology, where once they've committed one crime, it's almost, the first crime is almost the hardest. It usually gets easier in some cases, not in all. Some people have conscience, and those are the people that we would hope to bring back to reality, just back to common sense and to what is right. But there are those, especially those in politics, the mindset that you have to have, the vanity, the ego, the narcissism, the psychopathic tendencies. Not all politicians exhibit those, but there are some who do. I mean, and if you don't believe me, just watch someone like AOC speak for 5 minutes, or Eric Swalwell talk for 10 minutes, or Chuck Schumer give a speech, or Nancy Pelosi give a speech. And it's not just politics, it's media. Listen to Rachel Maddow go on a rant with Chuck Schumer where they giddily rub their hands together and laugh when they talk about how the intelligence agency is going to visit retribution on Trump for questioning them. How dare he? Or listen to, I could list these people all day long, but you get the point. There are certain people who just are I think, mentally and morally incapable of feeling guilt or remorse. They believe that they are righteous in whatever cause that they've decided to endeavor upon, and we know that they're not. But they are zealous. They're zealots, and they believe it. So when I say all this, I'm talking about civil war because nothing's going to happen to the Bidens. They'll push Joe out, sweep him under the rug, and then what they'll tell us is that it's basically, oh, that never happened, right? That's going to be, trust me when I say, that will be the play. It will be, that never happened. That's not a big deal. Kash Patel puts it clearly here. Listen to this.
We'll just bring it up to current events. You saw a frontline story in the Washington Post about a month ago from Woodward that says, thank you, Mr. Biden, for saving, I'm paraphrasing, for saving America from Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And we'd love for you to, be glorified and shown the exit ramp. Mm-hmm. The Washington Post is saying Joe Biden should leave the presidency. That's not by accident. It's because Woodward's have been fed information from the FBI and DOJ for decades. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, dollars for donuts, that they gave him some of the goods they have on Joe Biden that the public doesn't know. About the pay for play, about the fraud, about the corruption, about the CCP, about the Ukraine. And they are saying, we need to show this guy the exit ramp. Help us do it, and then we'll never have to tell the world, since Joe Biden left the presidency, we're not going to go after an old man of his criminal conduct. Or they're trying to force him to commute or pardon Hunter. Those, to me, are the two avenues they're trying to work besides impeachment to get rid of Biden.
Yeah. So what Kash just laid out is probably the most likely course of events here, where they will get rid of Joe Biden. They'll push him to the exit. Probably have him commute Hunter's sentence or something to that regard, maybe pardon him. And then they're just going to bring in their next puppet, probably Gavin Newsom, maybe Michelle Obama, who knows. But that's what the trajectory is now. So it just resets, right? Nothing's going to happen. And when I talk about civil war, I mean, again, not calling for it. I pray it doesn't happen. But when they're predictively programming us to be prepared for cyber attacks and civil war, you got to start asking some serious questions. So I'm going to play this clip first from Eva Vlaardingerbroek talking about what predictive programming is, and then I'll play the trailer from the Civil War movie, and you can decide for yourself. Listen to this.
Predictive programming is the idea that our governments or our elites, for example, use things like fictional stories, movies, the media, Hollywood to condition the general public and prepare them for a certain type of future event. In this case, you could say the cyber attacks, right? So the World Economic Forum has been warning us about it. Now we see all sorts of apocalyptic movies coming out about the potential dangers of cyber attacks. And what I'm afraid of is that this is just simply them telling us what they have in store for us next. You know, if you know what the globalist agenda is about, that it's an agenda of control, and that they love using crises to take control over our lives, well, a cyber attack is a perfect one to do it. Imagine that we say, well, you know, we need to take down the internet for a while, and it is dangerous, you know, to go on the internet uncontrolled because, look, we are prone to cyber attacks. Everybody now needs a digital identity to log onto the internet safely. You know, you have the perfect pretext to take control again over people's liberties and to monitor ordinary citizens and make their, freedom of movement, even online, limited to whether or not they comply with the government.
So listen, when they roll out this cyber attack, if they do, God forbid, the internet will become like the airport. And what do I mean? I mean, just like at the airport, at one point in the past, you were able to travel freely without major restrictions. Now you go to the airport and you're being face scanned, you're having your digital ID processed, you're having your photo ID checked, you're having to walk through x-ray machines, you're having to give up your freedom, your liberty, your autonomy, your freedom to travel without restriction by allowing the TSA agent to shove his hand in your crotch to make sure you're not carrying a terroristic bomb device or something. And I mean, these are mouth breathers, if there ever were some. I mean, I'm not saying all TSA agents are that way. I've met some nice ones, but man, have I met some just complete and utter. I don't want to say it. I'm going to be nice. But I'll say it this way. When, and if, God forbid, they pull off this cyber attack, they're going to turn the internet into the airport, and there will be a TSA for the internet. They're going to restrict your access to information because they understand they cannot win the information war when all the truth is on the table. That's just the truth. And what is that going to lead to? We're either going to lay down and accept it, or people are going to stand up against it. I don't know which is going to happen, but we'll see. Stay tuned. We'll be back. This is Craig James from Just Informed Talk Radio, and I want to take a second to tell you about my friends over at thefreedompeople.org. If you guys haven't tried them, you need to give them a call today. All you have to do is go to thefreedompeople.org and set up your call. And what can they help you do? Well, through legal and lawful processes, they'll help you reduce exposure to the tax man or other bureaucratic bodies. They can help you do things like set up express trusts, which help manage your business assets and affairs effectively and privately, while helping you gain greater control of you and your family's future. It can also help you do things like set up private membership associations, which help you restructure your business in a way that allows you to run it exactly how you want. If you believe your children should be able to receive their inheritance without paying an arm and a leg in taxes, and that taxes are unjust, the government ceases to represent the interests of its people, I want you to take a second today to go to freedompeople.org and schedule your call. Let them know I sent you, but more importantly, help make sure that your future is protected and that your business and your family are protected.
We'll try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
Welcome back, Just Informed Talk Radio. I'm your host, Craig James. This is a good conversation I think we're having about what's happening with this Civil War movie that just had its trailer released almost exactly at the same time as Obama dropped their movie about leaving the world behind, which was about a major cyber attack causing a civil war and coup d'etat. So, of course, they're predictably programming us. We saw that. We're going to watch the trailer here in a second. But before we do, I want to thank the sponsor, one of the sponsors of the show, thefreedompeople.org. If you haven't tried them out, go give them a shot today. You know, these guys have an amazing service, and it's really easy and simple for you to access. Just go to your web browser and type freedompeople.org. Make sure you put the in front of Freedom People, or else you'll go somewhere else. Thefreedompeople.org, and schedule a call. There's a button that says schedule a call. Pick a date, pick a time. They'll give you a free 30-minute consultation about what they can do for you. And what they essentially do is they can help you, your family, and your business protect yourselves legally and lawfully from exposure to the taxman and other bureaucratic entities by helping you do things like set up an express trust or a private membership association or other services that they can explain in more detail, and they can custom fit a plan for you based on your specific needs, whether it's just you or you and your family or you, your family, and your business, they can help you out. Give them a call today. Go schedule that call at thefreedompeople.org and tell them I sent you. Say, hey, Craig sent me over, and they'll know exactly what to do. So go check them out, and thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Now, we're talking about this civil, and look, I don't want to do this, right? I wish I didn't have to, but do you think you're going to turn on Fox News and they're going to talk about this stuff? You know, think Brett Baer with his, $30 million mansions is going to go into detail about the predictive programming and the Hollywood PSYOP that they're running and the way they're conditioning the people for this divide and conquer tactic? Or do you think you're going to get stories about Hunter Biden missed his court date today? And no. It's like, and again, it's like I talked about Hunter. I'll talk about that as well, but that's all you'll get there. You're just going to get the conservative gatekeeping nonsense rhetoric that means nothing to your daily life. And the red versus blue team paradigm of, we got to support Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy because, they have an R next to their name. Therefore, Paul Ryan runs our network and Rupert Murdoch, and we got rid of that, dastardly character of Tucker Carlson because he told too much truth that you couldn't hear. Like, is that what you want? And then the other side is just, at least the other side tells you who they are up front. MSNBC, CNN, the rest. But this is the information that matters right now. It'd be like if, and I did try to warn people before COVID that there was something coming. I saw the tea leaves. I was watching the reports. I was following the news. And I can tell you right now, I was trying to warn people that there was a virus. It was in China. It was spreading, that they were going to try to do something. I didn't know exactly what. But I knew they were bringing it. I knew they were going to try to bring the vaccine because, we were paying attention. Again, it really is amazing how much information you can glean just from reading and listening to what these homicidal, genocidal lunatics have to say and do. And again, that stands with what I'm talking about with this Civil War movie and the Leave the World Behind movie, where they're predictively programming us and conditioning us with responses and pre-programmed narratives that will be adopted when, and God forbid if, there's a major cyber attack which leads to chaos domestically, because it's their kill switch. It's like when Lisa Page was texting Peter Strzok about Trump and how they were trying to frame him, and they basically said that the whole Russia hoax was their insurance policy, right? It was like, just in case, we can't get him here, we have this insurance policy. Well, the globalist insurance policy is if they can't get Trump through conventional means, and it becomes clear that there has to be factions in this country that are sick of this garbage. I mean, we can't be the only ones. And we know that. And they know that. And that's why they're terrified. And rightfully so. I mean, if I was a complete homicidal, lunatic criminal who was, hell-bent on destroying a country which I pretend to represent and believe in, when I'm just trying to exploit it and its citizens for my benefit and the benefit of my friends, then yeah, I would be worried too, and I would be desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. So here, listen to this. This is the new predictive programming trailer for the Civil War movie that just dropped. God help us all. Remember, too, they were making movies about pandemics well before COVID came, and people have argued that was a part of a conditioning. One of the main ones that, if you want to watch, that's very interesting is a movie called, I think it's called Contagion. It's got Matt Damon and all these other people in it. Go back and watch that one. Yeah, that was before the pandemic. But listen, to this.
19 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
Are you guys aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America?
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces of Texas and California have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?
We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death.
Bloody.
Every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh, my God.
Get in the car! Get in the car! Move, move, move!
You're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
All right, so a lot of that at the end, you got the gist of it from the beginning, but the end was a lot of visual representation of a war happening here in America. I mean, they're projecting it. They're predictively programming us to condition us, to give us a narrative to respond with. That's what they want, and these people are desperate. They're going to sell this to the people. It's a fear tactic. If you enjoin yourself with America First Patriots, you're going to be waging civil war. It's pretty nefarious. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Welcome back to Just Form Talk Radio. I'm your host, Craig James. And what's interesting is we're talking about this movie, this second movie that's come out predicting civil war and overthrowing the government. And again, I think this harkens back to the narrative that the media has been trying to sell for a while now about January 6th being this insurrection and the danger of it. I think what's happening now is that Hollywood and the globalist overlords who run it, they want to continue to amplify the scare tactic in the American public, in their psyche, to convince them that even if these things aren't necessarily gonna happen at all, or if they are going to happen differently than they're being portrayed, that people should be afraid because this is what could happen. Like I said with Obama, it was a warning. Well, I think the same goes for what this movie stands for. It's a warning. And it's a warning to the American people saying, hey, this is what is going to happen if you support movements inside this country that don't fall in line with the uniparty and the establishment, the criminally corrupt factions within our government who have seized through hostile takeover control of portions of our government to a degree that they've weaponized the DOJ, the FBI. They've basically seized the White House through a corrupt and fraudulent election, which is tantamount to a coup anyway, and all of these other things. They want to scare people into believing that anything done in opposition to the government, which has become corrupt and broken, is going to result in F-16s dropping payloads on American cities. Because remember, that's the narrative that Joe Biden told us, right? Oh, you can't take on the federal government if you don't have nuclear weapons and F-16s. And it's like, well, at that point, then I guess we're just slaves, right? I mean, what's the point of the Constitution? What's the point of the Declaration of Independence? What's the point of any of it? The Bill of Rights? Because if you go by the logic that Joe Biden gave, we're slaves. We're nothing more than slaves, serfs, and they are the high priests and the overlords of our existence. Because that's what they've delusionally convinced themselves government is for. Government is for kings to rule over the masses, not a constitutional republic based on equal representation of the people and fair and just representation of the people. No, it's you're a serf, you're a slave. If you don't have, we got nuclear weapons, you don't, you better just fall in line. We have the CIA and all these other intelligence agencies who can go out and do whatever they want, whenever they want, lie, cheat, steal, kill, whatever. It's that. And you know what? I didn't sign up for this system. You know, I didn't make it. I didn't create it. I wasn't born and said, hey, I want to be a serf or a slave to this system. But it's like that movie Ants, to make a weird reference, but I think it's called Ants. And there's a movie called Ants, and in it there's this fascinating scene where there are these, I think they're like grasshoppers or crickets or something, and they kind of control the ants. They're kind of like the overlords for the ants, right? Kind of like the deep state globalist faction over the ants. And what they say behind closed doors is when they're having a conversation, like, well, one of them says to the head cricket, one of the other crickets says, why are you afraid of the ants? Because the ants are so weak and tiny and pathetic. And the guy goes, yeah, they are. And he uses and they have these little grains of pellets of food or something. And he takes one of the pellets and he throws it at the guy and he goes, did that hurt? And the guy goes, no, it's one pellet. It didn't do anything. And then the guy pulls a lever and a whole flood of these pellets come and hit this other cricket and completely crush him. And he says, how about that? And the point he was making is that although the ants individually are weak and incapable of standing up against a cricket in a one-on-one battle, because they outnumber them 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1 or more, that they could overwhelm them with numbers. So what the cricket's point was that they had to convince the ants that they were powerless. Because as soon as they realized they had power in numbers, then they would be able to stand up against the crickets who are ruling over them. And I know that's a crazy, somewhat out of left field analogy, but when you think about it, obviously the same thing is true for us. As individuals against this government, yeah, Joe, we would need F-16s or a nuclear weapon. And we don't have that. So we can't stand up to them individually. But the reason they sell us the Civil War narratives, and the reason they sell us the division narratives, and the reason they want us to look at each other based on the color of our skin and what religion we are and what everything else is, what gender we are, is because they need us to fight amongst ourselves, and that weakens us and keeps us from being able to stand up against this corruption. I mean, come on. Do you think these people are good faith actors? You know, they want to go on Donald Trump, and all right, fine. Donald Trump is evil, right, according to their narrative. Why? Well, I guess he took a loan out and repaid it in full with interest. He put some paperwork at Mar-a-Lago and had a conversation with a reporter. You know? He said the election was rigged on January 6th because it was. And then the feds set up an insurrection entrapment scam to push this division narrative further. Those are what they accuse Trump of, okay? Meanwhile, Hunter Biden snorting coke with Russian prostitutes who are taking classified sensitive information from him, presumably off of his laptop. He's selling access to his father. Both him and his father are, according to what we know from reports, you know, sexually abusing family members, taking bribes from foreign adversaries. But no, I mean, that's not a big deal because that means they're controlled. And if they're controlled, then to the power structure, they're harmless. But if you're Trump and you're not controlled, you're a threat. And if you represent enough people and make a voice that can bring unity amongst our movement and convince us that we aren't, that even though we are weak individually, that we are strong together, that's more dangerous than anything else, and that's why they have to get rid of him and anyone who stands with him. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Just Informed Talk Radio. I'm your host, Craig James. And, of course, you know, I'm trying to fold this together into a digestible, bite-sized portion because I think it's as simple as that. They're selling, it's both predictive programming and it is psychological warfare when you think about how they're selling the narrative that that civil war is coming and that there's going to be a global attack on America. All of these narratives necessitate what? A high degree of trust and dependence on the government, right? Because if you believe there's a civil war coming, then they're sowing the division that states like Texas and Florida were the separate. Well, who really runs Texas and Florida? You know, what kind of people live in Texas and Florida? And California, for that matter. I mean, people online are saying that it doesn't make sense that they have Texas and California as part of the split from America in this fictional Civil War scenario. But, I mean, listen, I lived in California for 3 years, and I can tell you that especially in anywhere outside of the major cities or the coastal cities and maybe Northern California, which California is a huge state. I mean, most people there are very conservative, especially in the Central Valley, especially in those areas. So I put it in these terms. They're scaring us. It's all about fear-mongering. It's about putting it into the psyche of the American people that if they stand up to the government against this corruption, against these kleptocrats who are working in tandem with the globalists and the big tech censors to shut down this country's ability to be free, our citizens' ability to be free, that this is the consequence. This is the psychological warfare propaganda embodiment of Joe Biden saying you need F-16s and nuclear weapons to fight the government. When literally the Second Amendment was written to stand in opposition to a tyrannical government. Which, look, again, I'm not calling for anything, but I'll say this. There's going to come a point where they're going to push the American people, and they're either just going to lay down and take it, or they're going to say no.